Hello everyone, I'm Siriji from Sri Venkateshwara College of Engineering, studying in 6th Sem, Department of Computer Science and Engineering. I'm here to discuss about Introduction to Tables, Basic Table Structure, Spanning Rows and Columns, Additional Table Elements, Styling Tables, Boxes and Zebras, Introduction to Forms, How Forms Work, Form Structure, the Form Element, and Form Control Elements. Coming to Introduction to Tables. A table in HTML is created using the table element and can be used to represent information that exists in a two-dimensional grid. Tables can be used to display calendars, financial data, pricing tables, and many other types of data. HTML table can contain any type of data like numbers, text, images, forms, and even other tables. Next, coming to basic table structure. HTML table contains any number of rows, tr. Each row contains any number of table data cells, td. Some browsers do not display borders for the table by default. However, we can do so via CSS. Many tables will contain some type of headings in the first row. In HTML, we indicate header data by using th instead of the td element, because browsers tend to make the content within a th element bold, but this can also be done by CSS. This is the basic example of the table structure. Here the tr defines a row in a table and td defines a cell in a table. After opening the td tag, we should close the td tag. And even after opening the tr tag, we should close the tr tag. And finally, we are closing the table tag. Spanning rows and columns. The row span and col span are the attributes of the td tag. These are used to specify the number of rows or columns a cell should merge. The row span attribute is used for merging rows. The row span attribute is used for merging the rows, and col span attribute is used for merging the column. These attributes should be placed inside the td tag. This is the basic example of spanning column. Here the tr tag defines a row in a table and col span is used for merging the column. And here the col span value is given as 2, so it merges the two columns. Next, this is the example of spanning rows. It is similar. Spanning rows and spanning columns both are similar, but we use row span instead of the col span for spanning the rows. And row span value is given as 3, so it merges the 3 rows. Additional table elements. The caption element is used to provide a brief title or description of the table, which improves the accessibility of the table and is strongly recommended. We can use the caption site CSS property to change the position of the caption below the table. The t-head, t-foot, and t-body elements tend in practice to be used quite infrequently, but make some sense for tables with a large number of rows. With the CSS, one could set the height and overflow properties of the t-body element so that its content scrolls while the header and footer of the table remain always on screen. The col and col group elements are so mainly used to aid in the eventual styling of the table. Rather than styling each column, we can style all columns within a col group with just a single style. The only properties we can set via these two elements are borders, backgrounds, width, and visibility, and only if they are not overridden in a td, th, or tr element. Next, styling tables. There is certainly no limit to the way one can style a table. Borders can be assigned to the table th and td element, Interestingly, borders cannot be assigned to the tr, t-head, and t-foot and t-body element. This property selects the table's border model. In this approach, each cell has its own unique borders. We can adjust the space between these adjacent borders via border spacing property. And the border spacing property is shown over here. In the third screen picture, the collapsed border model is being used. In this model, the adjacent cells share a single border. That is border collapse. Next, boxes and zebras. There are different ways one can style a table. Let us discuss two of them here. The first of these is a box format in which we simply apply background colors and borders in various ways. Zebras can add special styling to the TR element to highlight a row when the mouse cursor hovers over a cell with hover pseudo class. Pseudo element nth child is used to alternate the format of every second row. Introduction to forms. Forms provide an alternative way to interact with a web server. Forms provide a much richer mechanism. Using a form, the user can enter text, choose items from list, and click buttons. Typically, programs running on the server will take the input from HTML form and do something with subsequent HTML based on that input. There were controls for entering text, control for choosing from a list, button, checkboxes, and radio button. HTML5 has added a number of new control as well as more customization option for the existing control. Next, form structure. A form is constructed in HTML in the same manner as table or list, that is, using special HTML elements. Form. The figure illustrates a typical HTML form. The form is defined by a form element, which is a container for other element that represent the various input element within the form as well as plain text and almost any other HTML element. This is the basic form structure. How forms work. While forms are constructed with HTML element, a form also requires some type of server-side resource that processes the user's form input as shown in the figure. The process begins with a request for an HTML page that contains some type of form on it. This could be something as complex as a user registration form or as simple as a search box. After the user fills out of the form, there needs to be some mechanism for submitting the form data back to the server. This is achieved by a submit button, but through JavaScript, it is possible to submit from form data using other type of mechanism. Because interaction between browser and the web server is governed by the HTTP protocol, the form data must be sent to the server via standard HTTP request. The form element. There are two important attributes. Those are essential for any form, namely the action and the method attribute. The action attribute specifies the URL of the server-side resource that will process the form data. This could be a resource on the same server as the form or a completely different server. Example of server-side programming: PHP pages, ASP.NET, Active Server pages, and Java Server pages. The method attribute specifies how the query string data will be transmitted from browser to server. There are two possibilities, get and post. The difference resides in where the browser locates the user's form input in the subsequent HTTP request. With get, the browser locates the data in the URL of the request. With post, the form data is located in the HTTP header after the HTTP variables. Get appends form data into the URL in the name value pairs. The length of a URL is limited, about 3000 characters. Never use get to send sensitive data. Will be visible in the URL. useful for form submission where a user wants to bookmark the result. Get is better for non-secure data like query strings in Google. Post appends form data inside the body of the HTTP request. Data is not shown in the URL. Has no size limitation. Form submission with post cannot be bookmarked. Next, form-related HTML element. Button defines a clickable button. Data list, an HTML5 element that defines list of predefined values they use with input field. Field set groups related element in a form together. Form defines the form container. Input defines an input field. HTML5 defines over 20 different types of input. Label defines a label for a form input element. Legend defines the label for the field set group. Option defines an option in a multi-item list. Opt group defines a group of related options in a multi-item list. Select defines a multi-item list. Text area defines a multi-line text entry box. Next, form control elements. There are 5 types of form control elements, namely text input control, choice control, button control, specialized control, date and time control. Text input control. Most forms need to gather text information from the user, whether it is a search box or a login form or a user registration form. Some type of text input is usually necessary for that. Text creates a single line text entry box. Text area creates a multi-line text entry box. You can add content text or, if using an HTML5 browser, placeholder text. Password creates a single line text entry box for a password. Search creates a single line text entry box suitable for a search string. This is an HTML5 element. Some browsers on some platform will style search elements differently or will provide a clear field icon within the text box. Email creates a single line text entry box suitable for entering an email address. This is an HTML5 element. Some device, such as iPhone, will provide a specialized keyboard for this element. Some browsers will perform validation when form is submitted. Next, choice control. Forms often need the user to select an option from a group of choices. HTML provides several ways to do this. Select list. The select element is used to create a multi-line box for selecting one or more items. The option can be hidden in a drop-down list or multiple rows of the list can be visible. Option items can be grouped together via opt group element. The selected attribute in the option makes it a default value. The value attribute of the option element is used to specify what value will be sent back to the server in the query string when that option is selected. The value attribute is optional. If it is not specified, then the text within the container is sent to the server. Next, radio button. Radio buttons are useful when you want the user to select a single item from a small list of choices and you want all the choices to be visible. Radio buttons are added via input type is equal to radio element. The buttons are made mutually exclusive, that is, only one can be chosen by sharing the same name attribute. The checked attribute is used to indicate the default choice. Next, checkboxes. Checkboxes are used for getting yes or no or on or off responses from the user. Checkboxes are added via input type is equal to checkbox element. You can also group checkboxes together by having the same name attribute. Checked attribute can be used to set the default value of a checkbox. Next, button control. Input type is equal to submit creates a button that submits form data to the server. Input type is equal to reset creates a button that clears any of the user's already entered form data. Input type is equal to button creates a custom button. This button may require JavaScript for it actually perform any action. Input type is equal to image creates a custom submit button that uses an image for its display. Next, specialized control. There are two important additional special purpose form control that are available in all browsers. Input type is equal to hidden element allows the developers to include data that cannot be seen or modified by users when a form is submitted. Input type is equal to file element which is used to upload a file from the client to the server. Notice that form element must use the post method and it must include the enc type multipart form data attribute as well. Next, date and time control. Like with numbers, date and time often need validation when gathering this information from a regular text input control. From a user's perspective, entering dates can be tricky as well. Which format should follow when entering a date into a web form? The new date and time control in HTML try to make it easier for user to input these tricky date and time values. Thank you.